Hello everyone. So today I'm going to do a video on a graded BGS. BGS. Hi, how you doing? Kevin, welcome to Basement Games. Let's get this started. So today we're doing a BGS cracking. Now, for those that don't know, what is a graded BGS card? There are several sites that will actually do grading of Magic cards, baseball cards, whatever it is. And the process is fairly simple. The first thing they do, to my understanding, they have 3 separate independent people who audit the card. They check for condition, they check wear and tear. They also check, most importantly, if the card is authentic. And that's really important because that's basically, you can hold on to one of these and always be familiar that it is authentic and it's not an alter or something like that. Hey guys, how you doing? Welcome to chat. So a little bit about graded, because I'm fairly new to the graded side of the world, and I think a lot of us are pretty new to it and not familiar with what exactly it all entails, what's going on with it. Unlike, hey everybody, thanks for hopping in the chat. Like I said, I'm just going over the details of what's up right now, discussing this graded Sylvan library. So what comes with a grading, and why is it important, or not important, why is it something that people do, grading their cards? Initially, I didn't realize you could see that. Yeah, this is actually for tomorrow's raffle. Somebody mentioned, Anthony did, that, which is the SDC 18, quick promo because I'm the guy who plugs things. This is what we're raffling off tomorrow. It is the SDCC 18 Planeswalker box. This will be the first place prize, and second place prize will be a Jace the Mind Sculptor original print. So back to, and that's going to be $20 a spot. There's only 20 spots. So it's a very, very small raffle. Only 20 winners, well, 2 winners, only 20 participants. So 1 in a 20 chance. Okay. All right. Back to what we're doing though. Yeah, it's just funny that you mentioned it. So as I got into this hobby, the graded side of doing things, I started to realize it's really the Wild West. I feel a lot of people during the reserve list spike that happened in 2017, 2018, started immediately grading everything they could because they're like, what's better than, a regular reserve list card? How about one in thick plastic that some independent auditor gave a grade to? BGS, in my estimation, and a lot of people's, unlike PSA, which is the other big grading name, they grade a little bit stricter. They're kind of, if you've ever dealt with Star City games, they grade quite a bit harsher than a normal, let's say, Channel Fireball or your local game store. In other words, if it's not immaculately pristine, then that you don't get a near mint grade for it. And same is true with BGS, to my understanding. PSA is a little bit looser in that regard. So it's often said that a PSA 10, which is the other company, is equivalent to a BGS 9 or maybe even a 9.5. So just something to be aware of, that they are traditionally known as grading slightly different from each other. So why grade at all? I mean, the whole idea of this game is to play the cards, right? Well, yes and no. As many of you may be aware, this is not just a game for gamers. This is a game for collectors too. People put millions of dollars into these cards. I personally have several $1,000s in these cards, so I'm nowhere close. But for the rarest of cards, it is understandable why people would want to do the vacuum seal, do the very hard plastic case, and basically, just like if you've ever seen a graded comic book, same idea. You now have a piece of art. That is what this is. Once it becomes graded, I guess you could make a deck out of all these, but kill yourself. For the most part, this is just considered art, and art takes on a different value versus demand of cards that are seeing play like a raw card would. So a card like this, you can easily go to TCG, look up the mid or the market, and get an idea of roughly what people are paying for. Currently, there is no market for that for the graded cards. It's more or less what the individual thinks they're worth. You can go to eBay and look and backtrack and see what recently things sold for, but it's all over the map. Sometimes an 8 will sell for the same, which is considered a near mint, for the same as a near mint card. Sometimes it'll sell significantly more. Rarely does it sell for less. I got this card at $80 on eBay. Now, the TCG mid on a raw card is $100 for the Legends print of the Sylvan library. So how did I get a near mint one graded at the same price? And here's where some of the fluctuation comes from. There's not a lot of demand for cards that are graded under 9. So 8s, 8.5s, and below, there's just not a lot of demand because who wants these cards? People that are playing the cards that maybe don't care as much about exact condition, near mint, moderate play, LP, whatever, they just want to play it. So they don't want to go through the hassle of trying to crack it out, and they're not going to give you value on a 6 or 7 or even an 8. So that market is dead to them. And the people that are the true diehard collectors, they're looking for 9s. They're looking for 9s or possibly above 9s. They want that gold label. They want that 9.5. So just to go through, these are just a couple of things. What I'm slowly putting together is a collection of 9.5 reserve list duels from Revised. And eventually I'd like to have the whole set and just kind of to say I have them. I have 4 of them currently. Almost anything under a 9.5 I'm selling or cracking, as you're going to see later today. The reason for it is I think there's a lot of people that have caught on to the grading phenomenon, as it were. It's very hard to move these cards. They have to go to very distinct people. So the people that are willing to pay and shell out for art pieces that they can collect, they're really only looking for 9.5s. The reason I say 9.5s and not 10s, 10s are a gem. They really are almost impossible to find. And if you see one, unlike the difference of a 9 to a 9.5, the difference of a 9.5 to a 10 is exponential. So let's say I'm putting a 9 at 150, right? So a 9 is a 150. If we were to do a 9.5, maybe you'd find that around 200, maybe a little bit more, right? But for a 10, you're going to be looking at somewhere around $1,000. They're just incredibly hard to find, very, very rare. And the few people that have them move them at exponential lengths. So it's just worth being aware of the fact that if you do get cards that are graded 9.5 to 10s, there is a huge difference in what their pricing goes for. So back to the issue at hand. Why am I cracking this? Well, because quite honestly, I want to play the card. I love Sylvan libraries. I love the original art. And if anything is going to maintain the value, even though this is a reprintable card, and unfortunately, the original art apparently was done by a racist, Harold McNeil. Well, damn. But I love the original art. I love the original frame, the black border, the whole works. And I'd rather see this be in one of my decks than just sitting on a shelf. So that's why I'm going to crack this today. So is it worth it investing in graded cards? In my estimation, yes and no. If you're an investor and someone who doesn't always want to play the cards, but sometimes wants to show off the cards or display them or maybe even keep them safe, there's nothing safer as far as not being able to damage than one of these shells. These shells are awesome. They're very strong. They can be dropped many times. It's very, very tough plastic if you haven't held one of these before. So if you have power or very old duels, revised duels are definitely worth grading if they're going to get a high grade. If you think there's a little chip here or there, like for example, I'm trying to think why this didn't get a higher grade, and we're going to look at it kind of closely here. To me, it looks pretty immaculate. I'm just going to go around the sides here for a second for you guys. I'm sure there's some smudge or something. Maybe it's even on the back. I don't know. Yeah, I mean, this, I'm not kidding. If you see that right there, that little tiny whiteness right there, that may be why it didn't get a 9 or higher. I mean, that's what I'm talking about. When they're looking at 9, very, very high-end cards, it has to be pack fresh, immaculate. Now, most of us would see this and go, that is a mint card. But when you're grading, you're on another level. And yeah, I'm just not seeing anything that would detract from this. I think it's a beautiful minty card, and I want to put it in my deck. And unfortunately, so then there's also, there's the subgrades. So as you can see, the difference between these two things is this one has no subgrades and this one does. And all you're adding when you get subgrades is specifics. So had this had the subgrades, I would see, oh, they dinged it because of this side or perhaps the corners or the surface was not perfect. You know what I'm saying? So this one having the subgrades, the people that are in this community that care about these types of cards, they really care about these subgrades and they want to make sure that they're all immaculate. No kidding. I've seen cards like this that are a 9.5. And by the way, the reason I learned this as well, you never get a grade that is more than one whole number above the lowest number here. So for example, the reason this couldn't be a 10 is because not everything on here is a 10. Okay, so to get this to be a 10, everything has to average out to a 10 to make it work. So it's very, very difficult. It couldn't go, if the lowest grade here was, for example, a 6, it wouldn't go above a 7. So that's how they do their grading. It doesn't go 1 point above the very lowest grade on there. So this being a 9 means it couldn't go up to a 10, and then of course the averages make it not be a 10. But people that are looking at these kinds of cards, they really do care about these subgrades, and that's just something to be aware of. So where do I see this going? So now I'm going to go ahead and get to the cracking portion of this little video while I explain this. What is the deal with all this? Where do I see it going? What are my predictions? Well, honestly, as more and more of these cards, especially these older cards, get graded, and you see them in the 9s and 9.5s, I think you're going to start to notice that there's going to be, especially for the cards that are reserve lists that are not able to be reprinted, you're going to see a lot of decline in the available amount of cards that are actually on the open market. Because if they're in good shape, then they're very likely not going to be in play in a deck. They're going to be taken out of decks, they're going to be taken off of store shelves, and they're going to be put into cases like this and more or less preserved. So that's what you're going to see as these basically more and more of these cards are swept up and taken off of shelves. If they're in a really good shape, they're going to be put in slabbed, and that's going to create added pressure onto duels like this. Because someone who has 9.5s, unlike an 8, is not cracking it. Very, very unlikely they're going to crack these out of these, because a 9.5 is damn near perfect. So when they get these kinds of high 9s and 9.5s, they just don't crack them out, and that's now taken off the market. And again, reserve list cards cannot be reprinted according to Wizards' own policy. So those are now gone. You won't see those in trade binders or decks. And this is going to add added pressure onto the system. So eventually, let's kind of extrapolate this and put this a few years out from now. As more and more of these cards are graded and not anywhere else, you're going to see added pressure put into the market for these particular cards. Now, is that a good thing or a bad thing? Well, here's my thoughts on newer cards. Do not grade newer cards, unless it's just something like, this card saved my life, this card and I went through some tough times together, or I won a GP. Don't grade new cards, because new cards are easily reprintable, and you're just not going to take enough of them out of circulation to make it worth a damn as far as grading them goes. But older reserve list cards, or even older cards that are just the original printing, like this one right here, those are potentially worth grading, because people aren't going to go ahead and do the process that I just did, which is cracking it out of the case. So if you hadn't seen this before, that's going to be the plastic, a nice thick hard plastic. It's not terribly hard to actually break it open. And then it comes in an inner seal, and you'll see that it is actually nice and airtight, sealed up right here, but with some scissors that I apparently do. Oh, there we go. With some scissors that I have handy, you can just snip the tip. That sounded a little weird. And away you go. And then you've got yourself a nice, let's call it Pack Fresh 8.0 Sylvan Library. Oh, wow, that feels weird. That feels like one of those older Legends cards. Yeah. Smells like a Magic card. But as you can see, I would say this is definitely a minty card. If I got this and paid the regular mint price, I would not be mad at it at all. But it's not high enough for obviously BGS. So remember, when you're thinking about sending cards in, this got an 8. I would think it could get a 9 or higher, but nope, this got an 8. So really consider what you're doing when you're trying to grade cards, if you want to grade them from your own collection. For several reasons. One, it is kind of pricey. It definitely is time consuming, because you got to send it in, and unless you're paying for like an extra $100 for priority, you're going to have to deal with almost up to a year to get these cards back. So it may not be, just because you got some cards sitting around, you're like, hey, I want to put them into slabs. Make sure you realize the time that you're investing into that, because it can be atrocious trying to get these things back. But more or less, to recap, I would say if you're looking to get into a market, right now it is a buyer's market for any reserve list cards, even the duels. It is a buyer's market. You can get them on the low, and eventually these cards will rebound, because Commander players love duels, and they love anything that is a reserve list card that is played in Commander will rebound. 100% you can bank on it. If it's played only in other formats, like Vintage Legacy 93, 94, it may rebound, but it's going to take longer unless another format comes out that or unbans happen in the format, which we're going to have a discussion about that on Saturday, actually, about how to create a new format in Magic. So yeah, that's more or less my thought on that. It is definitely a good time to be buying older cards like this, and just playing them, using them, putting up as trade fodder. Maybe not necessarily grading them, but if you do find good deals on older cards, like I did, I think $80 for what was an 8 and is now a near mint Sylvan Library is an excellent price to be paying. So yeah, that's more or less my thoughts on that. It doesn't seem like a whole lot of people have any questions. Matthew asked, am I going to be raffling it? No, I think I'm just going to put that into my collection. That's I really wanted to have that, and it's a nice piece. But you did bring up a segue, since we're at the end of the video and we got a bunch of new players. I will be raffling this tomorrow. This is a 2018 sealed collector's box of Planeswalkers from San Diego Comic-Con. They have the alternate art on there. This is going up, and we're doing it kind of unique. This time around, this is going to be first place, and then a World Wake original, Jace the Mind Sculptor, will be second place. There will be only 20 spots in that raffle. Only 20. Well, actually, now it's down to 16. I think a few of the spots have been bought. So there will only be 20 winners, or excuse me, 20 participants or spots available, and which, depending on how many times you want to get spots, they're $20 each. You can up your chances significantly. So a Planeswalker box or a Jace will be the prizes for tomorrow. Other than that, I personally like certain things that are graded. Just to end this video, I love duels graded. I do have a Mox Diamond graded. Obviously, I'm a fan of reserve lists just because it's one of the few things you can actually deplete if you buy enough of it. And if they're cards that are played in formats that you love, then you can do pretty well when you have a monopoly on that. So that's just my thoughts on that. That's right, Matthew. All right, everybody. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. I'm going to go ahead and end it here. We do have Pack Wars going on tomorrow. That's Wednesday. I am going to be doing a Love Stinks party, which is a Valentine's party on Friday. Amar's after party Sunday, and of course a raffle tomorrow and a box cracking again on Saturday. And a huge conversation about new formats. So it's going to be a very busy week for the channel. Thank you very much for watching, and stay tuned. Take care. Bye-bye.